The morning started like any other at Buckingham Palace. Staff members moved quietly through the corridors, preparing for another day of royal duties. But everything changed when Commander James Blackwood of the Royal Guard marched into the Queen Consort's private secretary's office with an unprecedented announcement that would send shockwaves through the entire royal household. Camilla had been planning her European tour for months. Every detail had been carefully arranged. She would visit France, Germany, and Spain over 3 weeks, attending charity events and meeting with European leaders. Her staff had worked tirelessly on the schedule. Her wardrobe was prepared and diplomatic channels had been notified. The Queen Consort herself had been looking forward to this tour as an opportunity to strengthen international relationships and promote causes close to her heart. However, Commander Blackwood had different plans. Standing tall in his formal uniform, he delivered the shocking news with military precision. The Royal Guard, after extensive deliberation with senior military advisors and palace security officials, had determined that the tour could not proceed as planned. Security concerns had reached a critical level, and the protection required for the Queen Consort would strain resources beyond acceptable limits. But that was not all. In a move that stunned everyone present, Commander Blackwood announced that the Royal Guard was recommending Catherine, the Princess of Wales, to represent the crown on this European tour instead. The reasons he outlined were both practical and symbolic. Catherine's popularity across Europe was undeniable. Her diplomatic skills had been proven time and again during previous international visits. More importantly, the security arrangements for Catherine were already well established and could be deployed more efficiently. The news spread through the palace like wildfire. Staff members whispered in corners, trying to understand what this meant for the future of royal protocol. Some were shocked by the boldness of the Royal Guard's decision. Others quietly nodded, acknowledging that Catherine had become the face of modern royalty in the eyes of the public. Her grace under pressure, her dedication to charitable causes, and her ability to connect with people from all walks of life had made her extraordinarily popular. Camilla's private secretary immediately requested an emergency meeting with the king. This was unprecedented territory. Never before had the Royal Guard intervened so directly in matters of royal representation. The decision touched on sensitive issues of hierarchy, duty, and the changing nature of the monarchy itself. While the Royal Guard had the authority to make security decisions, this announcement went far beyond standard protocol. In her private apartments, Camilla received the news with a mixture of surprise and dignified composure. She had weathered many storms during her journey to becoming Queen Consort, and this would be another challenge to face. Her years of public service had taught her patience and resilience. Yet this situation was different. It questioned not just the logistics of a tour, but her role and standing within the royal family itself. Meanwhile, Catherine was informed of the decision while visiting a children's hospital in London. Her immediate reaction was one of concern and surprise. She had not sought this responsibility, nor had she known about the Royal Guard's intentions. Catherine understood the delicate position this placed her in. Her relationship with Camilla had always been cordial and respectful. The last thing she wanted was to be seen as undermining the Queen Consort's position. The British media got wind of the story by early afternoon. News outlets scrambled to verify the information and understand its implications. Royal correspondents who had covered the family for decades admitted they had never seen anything quite like this. Social media exploded with reactions ranging from support for Catherine to defense of Camilla. Public opinion was divided, with passionate arguments on both sides. European leaders who had been expecting to host Camilla were caught off guard. Diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent communications as officials tried to understand whether the tour would still happen and who would be attending. France's president had already prepared remarks welcoming the Queen Consort. Germany's chancellor had cleared her schedule for a state dinner. Spain's royal family had arranged special events. Now everything was in question. Back at the palace, emergency meetings were convened. The king's advisors gathered to discuss the situation and its broader implications. Some argued that the Royal Guard had overstepped their authority. Others suggested that perhaps this reflected deeper concerns about how the monarchy was perceived by the public. The question wasn't just about one tour anymore. It had become about the future direction of the royal family and who would be its public face. Commander Blackwood stood by his decision. In a private briefing with senior palace officials, he explained that the royal guard's primary responsibility was to the security and stability of the crown. Recent intelligence reports had raised concerns about potential threats during the tour. Additionally, polling data showed that Catherine's presence would better serve diplomatic objectives. While these were practical considerations, everyone in the room understood that the implications went much deeper. As evening fell on that momentous day, the palace remained in a state of controlled crisis. Lights burned late in offices as officials worked to manage the situation. Phone calls were made to European counterparts. Statements were being carefully drafted. Legal experts were consulted about the extent of the royal guard's authority in such matters. The machinery of the monarchy, usually so smooth and predictable, had been thrown into unexpected turmoil by a single announcement that morning. The king's response to the royal guard's announcement came swiftly but carefully. He called for an immediate private audience with Commander Blackwood, demanding a full explanation of the decision and the reasoning behind such a dramatic move. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours, far longer than anyone had anticipated. Those waiting outside could only speculate about what was being discussed behind those closed doors. Inside the private study, Commander Blackwood presented detailed security assessments and intelligence reports that had prompted the decision. He showed documentation of potential threats across the 3 European countries on the tour schedule. He also presented polling data from European nations showing Catherine's approval ratings significantly higher than other members of the royal family. The commander maintained that his decision was based purely on security concerns and diplomatic effectiveness. Not personal preference. The king listened carefully, his expression revealing nothing of his thoughts. As a constitutional monarch, he understood the delicate balance between tradition and practicality. He also recognized that the royal guard's concerns about security could not be dismissed lightly. However, the implications for his wife's position and dignity weighed heavily on his mind. This was not just a logistical decision. It touched on matters of family, duty, and the very structure of how the monarchy functioned. Camilla, meanwhile, held her own meeting with her closest advisors and legal counsel. She wanted to understand her options and the precedent this decision might set. Her advisors were divided in their recommendations. Some urged her to fight the decision, arguing that allowing the royal guard to make such determinations would undermine her authority. Others suggested a more diplomatic approach, focusing on maintaining dignity while working behind the scenes to ensure this never happened again. Throughout the palace, staff members took sides in hushed conversations. Some sympathized with Camilla, feeling that she had been treated unfairly after years of dedicated service. They remembered her countless charity appearances, her support for literacy programs, and her efforts to modernize the queen consort's role. Others quietly acknowledged that Catherine had captured the public's imagination in a way that few royals ever had. Her youth, style, and genuine warmth had made her the monarchy's greatest asset. The media frenzy intensified as more details emerged. Royal correspondents analyzed every aspect of the decision. Historians were interviewed about precedents in royal protocol. Security experts weighed in on whether the royal guard's concerns were justified. Political commentators discussed what this meant for the future of the monarchy. Every news channel seemed to have a different theory about what was really happening behind palace walls. Public reaction was intense and divided. Camilla's supporters organized online campaigns defending her right to represent the crown. They pointed to her years of service and argued that she deserved respect and support. Catherine's admirers, while sympathetic to Camilla, noted that the Princess of Wales had proven herself extraordinarily capable in diplomatic situations. They argued that sending the most effective representative made sense from a practical standpoint. Catherine herself remained largely silent publicly, but those close to her knew she was deeply troubled by the situation. She spent hours on the phone with William, discussing how to handle this unexpected turn of events. Catherine had always been careful to respect protocol and maintain good relationships within the family. Being thrust into this controversy was the last thing she wanted. She valued her relationship with both the king and Camilla and feared this situation could damage family harmony. William found himself in an equally difficult position. As heir to the throne, he needed to support his father. As a husband, he wanted to protect Catherine from being caught in palace politics. As a son who had grown to respect his stepmother, he felt sympathy for Camilla's situation. The traditional royal response would be to remain silent and let palace officials handle everything. But William had always believed in a more modern, transparent approach to royal duties. Behind the scenes, diplomatic efforts were underway to manage the international fallout. British ambassadors in France, Germany, and Spain were working overtime to reassure their host countries that the tour would proceed and that any changes would be handled with proper protocol. European officials were understanding but clearly concerned about what this internal turmoil suggested about the stability of the British monarchy. Some whispered that such public disagreements would never happen in their own royal families. As the second day of the crisis unfolded, palace lawyers were examining the constitutional basis for the Royal Guard's decision. They discovered that while the Guard had broad authority over security matters, the question of who could represent the crown on official visits had never been clearly defined in this way. Previous decisions had always been made by the monarch in consultation with advisors. The Royal Guard's unilateral announcement was unprecedented and raised questions about the chain of command within the royal household. Senior members of Parliament began expressing concern about the situation. While they had no direct authority over royal matters, several MPs suggested that such internal conflicts undermined public confidence in the monarchy. One prominent politician called for a review of how decisions about royal representation were made. Another suggested that the palace needed better crisis management procedures. The situation was becoming not just a royal family matter, but a national conversation about how the monarchy operated. Late in the evening, a small group gathered in the king's private quarters. Present were the king, Camilla, William, Catherine, and Commander Blackwood. This informal meeting had been requested by the king as a way to discuss the situation frankly, away from advisors and protocol officers. The atmosphere was tense but respectful. Everyone present understood that what they decided in this room would shape not just the immediate situation, but potentially the future of the monarchy itself. The conversation that followed would prove crucial to resolving the crisis. The private meeting began with an uncomfortable silence. 5 people sat in the king's study, each aware that the next hours would determine not just the fate of one tour, but potentially the future relationships within the royal family. The king spoke first, his voice measured and calm. He acknowledged that they were facing an unprecedented situation that required honest conversation rather than formal protocol. Commander Blackwood was invited to present his full assessment once more. He explained that recent intelligence had identified 3 specific threats targeting the European tour. While he could not share all details in this setting, the threats were credible enough to cause serious concern. Beyond security, he noted that European polling showed Catherine's presence would strengthen diplomatic ties in ways that would benefit Britain's international standing. He emphasized that his recommendation was based on national interest, not personal judgment. Camilla listened carefully, her decades of public life showing in her composed demeanor. When it was her turn to speak, she chose her words with care. She acknowledged the security concerns and said she would never put anyone at risk. However, she also expressed that the manner of the announcement had been hurtful and had undermined her position. She had worked hard to earn respect as queen consort, and this public declaration suggested her contributions were somehow insufficient. Catherine spoke next, and her words surprised everyone in the room. She stated clearly that while she was honored by the confidence placed in her, she could not accept the assignment under these circumstances. She explained that representing the crown was a privilege that should be offered, not imposed through a unilateral decision. More importantly, she valued her relationship with Camilla and would not be party to anything that appeared to diminish the queen consort's role. If the tour was to proceed with her as representative, it would need to be through proper channels and with everyone's agreement. The room's atmosphere shifted noticeably after Catherine's statement. Her willingness to decline what many would see as an opportunity impressed everyone present. William looked at his wife with obvious pride, while Camilla appeared visibly moved by Catherine's loyalty. The king nodded slowly, recognizing that Catherine had found a path forward that preserved both dignity and family unity. William then offered his perspective as heir to the throne. He suggested that perhaps this crisis revealed deeper issues that needed addressing. The monarchy was evolving, and the ways they made decisions about representation needed to evolve too. He proposed establishing a clearer system for determining who would undertake various royal duties, one that balanced security concerns, public interest, and respect for each family member's role. This way, future situations could be handled more smoothly. The king appreciated his son's forward thinking. He agreed that new protocols were needed for the modern era. However, the immediate question remained about the European tour. 3 countries were expecting a royal visit, and Britain's diplomatic relationships were at stake. They needed to find a solution that addressed security concerns while respecting everyone involved. The king asked each person to speak openly about what they thought would be the best path forward. Commander Blackwood acknowledged that his announcement had been too abrupt. While his concerns remained valid, he admitted that the decision should have been presented as a recommendation rather than a declaration. He apologized for the distress his approach had caused. However, he maintained that from a security standpoint, having Catherine lead the tour remained the optimal choice. He offered to work with palace officials to present this recommendation through proper channels. A thoughtful discussion followed about what the tour was meant to accomplish. The original goals had been strengthening cultural ties, promoting British charities operating in Europe, and demonstrating the monarchy's commitment to international cooperation. Everyone agreed these were important objectives. The question was how best to achieve them while addressing the practical concerns that had been raised. Camilla surprised the room by proposing a compromise. What if both she and Catherine undertook the tour together? This would address security concerns by having younger, more mobile representation while also maintaining her role as queen consort. It would show unity within the family, and could even strengthen the tour's impact by having 2 popular figures working together. The European hosts might appreciate the additional attention this would bring. The suggestion hung in the air as everyone considered its implications. Catherine immediately expressed support for the idea. Working alongside Camilla would be an honor, and it would demonstrate family solidarity. William agreed that a joint tour could be powerful symbolically. Commander Blackwood noted that from a security standpoint, this could actually work well, as both royal security teams were experienced in European operations. The king smiled for the first time that evening, sensing that they had found their solution. Details were quickly discussed. They would present this as an enhancement of the original tour rather than a replacement. Camilla would lead the formal diplomatic meetings, drawing on her experience and her position as queen consort. Catherine would focus on the charity events and public engagements, where her personal touch had proven so effective. Together they would represent different strengths of the modern monarchy, showing that it could honor tradition while embracing change. As the meeting concluded, there was a sense of relief mixed with renewed purpose. What had begun as a crisis had become an opportunity to demonstrate how the royal family could work through challenges together. The king requested that a formal announcement be prepared for the next morning. It would explain that after careful consideration, the European tour would proceed as a joint initiative, bringing together experience and energy in service of Britain's diplomatic interests. The focus would be on the positive aspects of this collaboration, rather than dwelling on the controversy that had led to it. The announcement of the joint tour transformed the narrative overnight. What had been a story of palace conflict became one of royal cooperation and family unity. Media outlets praised the solution as innovative and forward-thinking. European officials expressed enthusiasm about hosting both royals, recognizing that the combined tour would generate more attention and goodwill than originally planned. The crisis had evolved into an opportunity. Preparation for the tour kicked into high gear. Camilla and Catherine's staff members, who had previously worked separately, now needed to coordinate every detail together. The logistics were complex. 2 separate security teams had to work as one. Scheduling required careful balance to ensure both royals had meaningful roles throughout the tour. Wardrobe choices needed coordination to ensure they complemented rather than competed with each other. Every detail mattered. The 2 women met several times during the preparation period. Their relationship, which had always been cordial, deepened through this shared challenge. Camilla appreciated Catherine's grace in handling the difficult situation. Catherine gained new respect for Camilla's experience and diplomatic skill. They discovered they worked well together, with complementary strengths that would serve the tour objectives effectively. What could have divided them had instead brought them closer. French officials were the first to revise their plans to accommodate both royals. The president's office extended the state dinner invitation to include Catherine alongside Camilla. Cultural events were adjusted to showcase both British tradition, which Camilla represented, and contemporary British culture, which Catherine embodied. The Louvre arranged a special viewing of British artworks for both royals. Every French venue wanted to be part of what was now being called the most significant royal tour in years. Germany embraced the joint tour with characteristic efficiency. The Chancellor's team created a schedule that maximized the diplomatic impact of having two senior royals visiting simultaneously. Berlin planned a technology forum where Catherine could highlight innovation, paired with a literary event where Camilla could promote her longtime passion for literacy. Hamburg prepared youth programs for Catherine and heritage preservation discussions for Camilla. Each event played to their respective strengths. Spain took a more creative approach. The Spanish royal family, seeing an opportunity to demonstrate their own modernization, planned joint events featuring Queen Letizia alongside Camilla and Catherine. This would showcase how European monarchies were evolving together. Madrid scheduled discussions about women's empowerment, where all three royal women would participate. Barcelona prepared art and culture events that would appeal to international media. Spain saw this as a chance to strengthen bonds between two historic royal families. Behind the scenes, security arrangements required unprecedented coordination. Commander Blackwood worked closely with European security services to ensure every movement was carefully planned and protected. The fact that two senior royals would be traveling together actually created some security advantages. Resources could be concentrated more effectively, and backup plans were more robust. However, the responsibility of protecting both women weighed heavily on everyone involved in security planning. Media interest in the tour reached unprecedented levels. News organizations from around the world requested credentials to cover the visit. Fashion magazines wanted to document the wardrobes of both royals. Political analysts prepared pieces about what this tour meant for British diplomacy. Royal watchers saw it as a defining moment in how the monarchy was adapting to modern times. The coverage would be intense, which meant every detail needed to be perfect. Catherine spent hours preparing for her role. She studied briefing materials about each location, reviewed talking points for various events, and met with experts on European affairs. She wanted to ensure she represented Britain well and supported Camilla effectively. The responsibility felt enormous. This was not just any tour. It was a chance to show that the royal family could turn a crisis into a triumph. She was determined not to let anyone down. Camilla approached preparation with her characteristic thoroughness. She had undertaken numerous international tours and knew how exhausting and demanding they could be. She made sure Catherine understood what to expect, sharing practical advice about managing energy levels, dealing with endless public appearances, and maintaining composure under constant scrutiny. Their preparation sessions became opportunities for genuine mentorship, with Camilla drawing on her years of experience to help Catherine succeed. The king watched these preparations with satisfaction. What had begun as a potential family crisis had revealed the strength and adaptability of the monarchy. He saw how Camilla and Catherine were working together, how William was supporting both women, and how palace staff were rising to the challenge. This was the modern monarchy he envisioned, one that could face unexpected challenges and emerge stronger. The European tour would be a statement about more than just diplomatic relations. It would show the world that the British royal family was united and purposeful. As departure day approached, final details were locked into place. Every speech was reviewed and approved. Every outfit was selected and ready. Security protocols were rehearsed until they became second nature. Diplomatic talking points were memorized. The schedule was analyzed and optimized one last time. Both Camilla and Catherine felt as prepared as possible for what lay ahead. They understood that this tour would be scrutinized like few others. Success would validate the decision to work together. Any misstep would fuel critics who had questioned the entire arrangement. The night before departure, both women had quiet dinners with their families. Catherine spent time with William and their children, savoring the normalcy of home before weeks of official duties. Camilla and the king had a private dinner, reflecting on how far they had come together and how this tour represented a new chapter. Both women went to bed early, knowing they would need all their energy for the journey ahead. Tomorrow they would board the royal plane and begin a tour that everyone hoped would make history, for all the right reasons. The royal plane touched down in Paris to a reception far beyond what anyone had anticipated. Thousands of people lined the streets leading from the airport, waving British and French flags. The media presence was overwhelming, with cameras from every major news organization positioned to capture every moment. As Camilla and Catherine descended the aircraft stairs together, the crowd's enthusiasm was immediate and genuine. The joint tour had captured international imagination. The French president greeted both royals warmly at the airport, making a point of welcoming them as representatives of British strength and unity. His brief remarks emphasized the enduring friendship between France and Britain, noting that this historic joint visit symbolized how tradition and modernity could work together. French media later called it one of the most gracious diplomatic welcomes in recent memory. The tour was off to a promising start. Their first official event was a state dinner at the Élysée Palace. Camilla and Catherine had coordinated their attire carefully. Camilla wore an elegant midnight blue gown that spoke to traditional royal dignity. Catherine chose a modern champagne-colored dress that represented contemporary style. Together, they created a visual statement about the monarchy's ability to honor its past while embracing its future. French fashion critics raved about their choices, noting how perfectly they complemented rather than competed with each other. During the dinner, both women demonstrated their diplomatic skills. Camilla engaged in substantive discussions with senior French officials about cultural preservation and literary initiatives. Her years of experience showed in how effortlessly she navigated complex conversations. Catherine, meanwhile, connected with younger French leaders about technology, education, and mental health initiatives. Her genuine interest and ability to relate personally to people created instant rapport. French officials privately remarked that Britain had sent their very best representatives. The next day brought visits to French cultural institutions. At the Louvre, Camilla led a discussion about preserving artistic heritage for future generations. Her knowledge and passion for the arts impressed French curators. Later that afternoon, Catherine visited a children's hospital, spending time with young patients and their families. Her warmth and authenticity touched everyone present. Photos of Catherine comforting a sick child went viral on social media, reminding the world why she had become so beloved. What struck observers most was how well Camilla and Catherine worked together. They attended some events jointly and others separately, but there was clear coordination and mutual support throughout. When Catherine spoke about mental health initiatives, Camilla was there applauding encouragingly. When Camilla discussed literacy programs, Catherine actively participated in the conversation. Their partnership appeared genuine, not staged for cameras. This authenticity resonated with everyone who witnessed it. The tour moved to Germany after 3 successful days in France. Berlin welcomed them with equal enthusiasm. The German chancellor had arranged a technology summit where Catherine could discuss innovation and digital education. Camilla attended separately, meeting with German literacy organizations and visiting libraries that promoted reading among immigrants learning German. Both events attracted significant media coverage, showing how the joint tour allowed coverage of twice as many important issues. A highlight in Germany was a joint appearance at a youth forum. Young people from across Europe had gathered to discuss their hopes and concerns about the future. Camilla and Catherine sat side by side, listening to questions and sharing their perspectives. When asked about their partnership on this tour, they spoke honestly about how the unusual circumstances had led to this collaboration. Their candor and willingness to discuss challenges openly impressed the young audience. It was a masterclass in turning difficulty into opportunity. Behind the scenes, both women were exhausted. Royal tours demanded constant energy and attention. Every moment was scheduled, every appearance required perfection. But they supported each other through the demanding schedule. Camilla would check on Catherine after particularly long days, offering encouragement and perspective. Catherine brought youthful energy that lifted spirits when fatigue set in. Their staffs marveled at how what could have been a tense working relationship had become genuine partnership. Social media buzzed with positive reactions throughout the tour. Hashtags celebrating the joint visit trended globally, Fashion bloggers analyzed their coordinated wardrobes. Political commentators praised their diplomatic effectiveness. Even critics who had initially questioned the arrangement admitted that the tour was exceeding expectations. Public opinion polling in Britain showed approval ratings for the monarchy reaching their highest levels in years. The joint tour was becoming a triumph. Spain awaited them for the final leg of the tour. King Felipe and Queen Letizia had prepared an ambitious schedule that would showcase Spanish culture while strengthening bonds between the two royal families. The Spanish public was particularly excited because Queen Letizia would join Catherine and Camilla for several events. The idea of three modern royal women working together captured imaginations across Europe. It represented a new era of royal cooperation and female leadership. As they prepared to leave Germany for Spain, both Camilla and Catherine reflected on what they had accomplished. The tour that had begun in controversy was proving to be one of the most successful royal visits in memory. They had represented Britain with dignity and effectiveness. They had shown that the monarchy could adapt and innovate. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that working together, respecting each other's strengths and maintaining grace under pressure, could transform challenges into achievements. Spain would be the final test, and they were ready. Back in Britain, the king watched coverage of the tour with pride and relief. What could have been a disaster for the monarchy had become a showcase of its relevance and resilience. The crisis triggered by Commander Blackwood's announcement now seemed like a blessing in disguise. It had forced creative thinking and collaboration that might never have happened otherwise. As Camilla and Catherine prepared to complete the tour in Spain, the king knew that this experience would strengthen the family and the institution for years to come. Madrid welcomed the royal delegation with characteristic Spanish warmth and ceremony. King Felipe and Queen Letizia personally greeted Camilla and Catherine at the palace, emphasizing the deep historical ties between British and Spanish royal families. The Spanish media had dubbed this the Tour of Unity, recognizing how the visit had evolved from controversy into celebration. The final days of the tour would be crucial in cementing the success they had built across France and Germany. The centerpiece event in Spain was a forum on women's empowerment, featuring Camilla, Catherine, and Queen Letizia. Three royal women from different generations and backgrounds sat together, discussing challenges facing women globally. Camilla spoke about her decades of work supporting survivors of domestic violence. Catherine discussed mental health and early childhood development. Queen Letizia addressed education and professional opportunities for women. The conversation was substantive, moving beyond ceremonial pleasantries to address real issues with genuine passion. Media coverage of the forum reached audiences far beyond Europe. News outlets across the world highlighted how three influential women were using their platforms for meaningful advocacy. The contrast with traditional royal tours was striking. This was not just ceremony and photo opportunities. It was royalty engaging seriously with contemporary challenges. Social media reactions were overwhelmingly positive, with many noting that this represented the future of modern monarchy. Barcelona provided the tour's final stop. The city had prepared cultural events showcasing Spanish and British artistic collaboration. Camilla visited the Picasso Museum, discussing how art transcends borders and brings people together. Catherine spent time with youth sports organizations, emphasizing physical activity and teamwork. Their separate schedules demonstrated how the joint tour format allowed them to cover more ground and reach more people than a traditional single royal visit could achieve. The farewell ceremony at Barcelona Airport was emotional. Spanish officials thanked both royals for a historic visit that had strengthened ties between nations. British diplomatic staff privately acknowledged that the tour had accomplished more than they had dared hope. Security teams breathed sighs of relief that everything had proceeded smoothly. Most significantly, Camilla and Catherine themselves had developed a working relationship and mutual respect that would benefit the royal family for years to come. During the flight home, both women had time to reflect. The tour had been exhausting but rewarding. They had faced intense scrutiny, demanding schedules, and constant pressure to perform flawlessly. Yet they had succeeded beyond expectations. What had started as a crisis manufactured by an unexpected Royal Guard announcement had transformed into one of the most successful royal tours in modern history. They talked quietly about what they had learned and how they might work together on future projects. Their arrival in London brought a warm reception from the king and other family members. The pride in their accomplishment was evident. William embraced Catherine, whispering how proud he was of what she had achieved. The king kissed Camilla's hand, a gesture of respect and gratitude. That evening, the family gathered for a private dinner where Camilla and Catherine shared stories from the tour. The laughter and camaraderie made clear that the experience had strengthened family bonds. In the days following their return, analysis of the tour flooded British media. Polling showed that public approval of the monarchy had increased significantly. Support for both Camilla and Catherine had grown stronger. Political commentators noted that Britain's soft power diplomacy had been enhanced. European leaders praised the visit in official statements. The tour had achieved every diplomatic objective while also demonstrating that the royal family could innovate and adapt when necessary. Commander Blackwood met privately with the king to discuss lessons learned. While his initial announcement had been handled poorly, the outcome validated his core concerns about effectiveness and security. The king acknowledged this but emphasized that future recommendations needed to be presented through proper channels, with greater sensitivity to family dynamics. They agreed on new protocols for determining royal representation on international visits, creating a framework that balanced security, diplomacy, and respect for each family member's role. Perhaps the most significant outcome was the new working relationship between Camilla and Catherine. They began meeting regularly to discuss charitable initiatives and royal duties. What could have become a source of rivalry had instead become a partnership. Camilla appreciated having an ally who understood the unique pressures of royal life. Catherine valued having a mentor with decades of experience navigating public scrutiny. Their collaboration became a model for how different generations within the family could work together effectively. The tour also prompted broader conversations about the monarchy's future. William's suggestion of clearer protocols for royal duties was implemented. A committee was formed to review how the family made decisions about representation, ensuring everyone's contributions were valued appropriately. These reforms, born from crisis, would help the monarchy navigate future challenges more smoothly. The institution was evolving, learning from difficulty rather than being defeated by it. 6 months after the tour, its impact was still evident. European diplomatic relationships with Britain remained strong, with officials citing the memorable joint visit as a highlight of recent bilateral relations. Charitable organizations that Camilla and Catherine had highlighted during the tour reported increased donations and volunteer interest. The fashion industry continued discussing their coordinated wardrobes as an example of thoughtful style diplomacy. Most importantly, public interest in the royal family remained high, sustained by genuine respect for how they had handled adversity. Looking back, everyone involved recognized that Commander Blackwood's controversial announcement had been a catalyst for positive change. It forced difficult conversations that needed to happen. It created an opportunity for Camilla and Catherine to demonstrate their capabilities and build their partnership. It showed the public that the royal family could face internal disagreements and emerge stronger. What seemed like a crisis at the time had actually been the beginning of a new chapter for the monarchy, one marked by flexibility, collaboration, and mutual respect among its members as they worked together to serve Britain and the Crown.